Hi everyone, it's Chloe here and I'm the owner, maker and creator of Emmy Creations, and welcome back to my channel. So today's video is going to be answering all the questions that you sent me through my Instagram and also through the comment section in my last video. And I received quite a few questions, so I've got them printed right here and there's 30 questions to go through. So I wasn't expecting that many questions. I honestly was probably just expecting 15 to 20, but I've received 30. So this is going to be a fairly long video, so I would say get a cup of tea ready like I have, and also if you're crocheting, definitely have your crocheting material with you because this is going to be a long one. So I think I should just get straight into it. Okay, so the first question is, what is the top 3 cost or time-saving tips you've learnt? Oh, this is a really good question. Okay, so I think I'll answer this based on cost and time. So in terms of cost, I always buy in bulk. In terms of my yarn, in terms of all my packaging materials, I always buy in bulk because you'll always get a better discount when you buy more. I guess some people may hesitate with buying in bulk because they don't think they will use all the materials that they buy. But, you know, there is a chance that depending on the amount that you purchase, the amount of discounts that you get may gradually increase. So for example, if you buy 50 items, you might get 5%, but if you get 100 items, you might get 10% off. So yeah, or one way is to actually email the manufacturers or the suppliers and see if they're willing to do a discount for you. So yeah, so one is definitely buying in bulk. The second thing is actually doing your research when it comes to your materials. If you don't do your research and you just go with one supplier, I can definitely tell you now that there are a lot more other suppliers around, and you could literally just do a little Google search and there will be a lot of, you know, suppliers that pop up, and then you just need to do a price comparison and see which one offers the best price for you. So obviously definitely do your research when it comes to purchasing your items. And I guess the last thing, I guess this kind of relates to the second point, and that is you know, always review the suppliers' prices every 6 months because they do change quite often and you don't want to be paying too much for something. So definitely review your prices every 6 months and see if you can find new suppliers that can supply your yarn or supply your packaging items or your other items that you need for your business. So I guess that kind of relates to number 2, but in kind of different in a way that you already know who your suppliers are, but you're just reviewing prices and potentially finding other new suppliers so that you can save a little bit of extra cash. In terms of time, I always say you should always plan ahead with you know, your projects and things. So for myself, I have a little journal that I plan my monthly and weekly tasks. So usually in terms of the month, it's more of a how should I say, it's not as detailed in terms of what I need to do on a monthly basis. It's more just highlighting what the seasonal events are occurring in that particular month, and for me to think about what potentially should I be doing. In terms of the weekly breakdown, that actually becomes a little bit more detailed in the sense of what am I going to be making for the week, or what am I going to be posting on Instagram for the week, or you know, what do I need, when do I need to do my finances in that week. So it becomes more detailed. So planning ahead is really important when it comes to running a business. Also in terms of time, and I think one thing that people, in terms of like time management, one thing that people don't really, you know, they always think they have enough time. And the reality is we have expectations that we will be able to finish something really quickly or on time. But the reality is we never do. And that's because we always, you know, we don't expect what what is going to happen on those particular tasks. So what I'm trying to say is to reduce your expectations in terms of, you know, how much you can do. So whenever I'm doing my planning in terms of for the week, now that I've ran my business for 2.5 years, I kind of know how long things take for me. Whereas at the beginning, I would write a lot of tasks, and then as I go through the task on a daily basis, I'm just like, why am I only ticking off 3 items when I've listed 10 items, you know? So I would say reduce your expectations or manage your expectations in terms of your time. And that way you will probably feel like you will get more things done than feeling, you know, disappointed with yourself because you weren't able to get tasks done. And then I guess that I can't think of a third one, but I think those 2 are the main things in terms of time. It's not really they're not really time saving tips, but it's more time management tips. Only because, yeah, like I said, people overestimate in terms of how much they can do, and you know, at the end you don't want to feel like you haven't done enough, and you just want to be doing the best you can and producing the best products that you can as well, and you don't want to be rushing the process as well. So definitely managing your expectations when it comes to time and understanding how much time you need for different tasks. So that's my answer for the very first question. So the second question is, how do you avoid hand or back pain after crocheting so much in a few days or weeks? This is a very good question. So I would say I don't crochet 24/7. Let's just make that very clear. It seems like I crochet a lot, but the reality is I don't crochet every day, and I don't design every single day. I would say if I was to tell you how much I actually design or crochet, I would say I always crochet every second day. So basically I give a whole day of rest for my hands and my back, but on the days when I am crocheting, I'm always resting after crocheting for an hour, for example. So I will crochet for an hour, and then I would rest my hands for, you know, 15 minutes to 30 minutes, and in that time I'm probably doing, you know, some other tasks like, you know, household chores or something in that time, and I'm also doing some hand stretches. So some of the hand stretches that I like to do is the one where I do this. You hold it for 10 seconds, and then you do it on the other way, and you hold it for 10 seconds again. And you basically just repeat this for, you know, 3 to 5 times, I would say. So these are my go-to stretches. And then the other one is also doing it this way as well, because it stretches around here as well. So definitely doing hand stretches. In terms of your back, I also do some back stretches. So I don't know if I can show you, or I don't think I can show you, but I'll probably just put an image of what that stretch is. But basically I would have my yoga mat on the floor, and I don't know what the pose is called, but I'm basically just with my legs tucked in, and I'm just leaning forward and just stretching my back. I also do like some shoulder blade stretches as well, or just some exercises. So it's really weird, but I basically put my arms down like this, and I just push back, and that feels really good. It just feels just really, really good. So because a lot of the times when you're crocheting, you feel like you're probably hunching a little bit. So by doing that exercise, you're kind of pushing your back a little bit. And so you just do that, and then you do the same with your hands flipped over like this, and then making sure it's 90 degrees and it's flat, and then you push back again. So it's really important to stretch your back and arms. And I'm really glad that you asked me this question, because I think a lot of people don't take care of their hands and their backs, and they'll feel some back pains and, you know, some wrist pains, or at some point, even for myself, I had carpal tunnel last year, and then I had to see a physio about it, and I had to, you know, do all these exercises and let my wrist rest for like 2 to 3 months. And as a crochet artist, you know, I don't have that time to be resting because I need to be designing new toys. But yeah, those are some of the things that I do to prevent any, you know, hand injuries and also to help relax my back. I also do see a chiro as well. My chiro is really good. So besides all the back cracking stuff that she does, she also massages areas in my back where it actually feels really tight and feels really stiff. So yeah, if you can, definitely see a professional if you do feel like you have any, you know, issues with your back. Like even my physio as well, like he even says he sees a lot of people who require, you know, just some massaging in the shoulders, and that's probably the most common area that they work on, is the neck and the shoulders. And so yeah, so definitely take care of your health. If you feel like you're getting a bit of pain and you need some help from some professionals, definitely go see a chiro or a physiotherapist. If not, just, you know, treat yourself to a massage. You know, it doesn't hurt to, you know, relax your back a bit and give yourself a rest and some pampering as well. So I would say you are not, like, don't crochet 24/7. Because, you know, if you do that, you are going to be, you know, suffering quite a bit of pain in your body, and you don't want your body to suffer as well, because you still need this to, you know, move around and do your other daily tasks and enjoying life as well. So yeah, that's what I would say. And I wish I said this to myself, you know, when I first started, because when I first started, I was really going full steam ahead, and I was just crocheting every single day, didn't rest, didn't take a break. And then when I finally injured my wrist, that was like a wake-up call for me. So take frequent breaks, you know, every hour when you're crocheting, taking frequent breaks, you know, at least 15 to 30 minutes long breaks. In that time, do your hand stretches, do your back stretches, and also, as I said before, if you want extra help, definitely see a medical practitioner, like your chiropractor or your physiotherapist, and hopefully they can, you know, give you more ideas on how you can, you know, work on your back, for example, because they will know what's best for you. But yeah, so lots of stretching, guys. Lots of stretching. Okay, so the next question is, do you ever have a little brain rest designing all the time? Like I said before, I'm actually not designing all the time. I do have periods where I just have no ideas. Like I'm just blank. Like I just run into a brick wall and I just can't get through it. Like I just don't have any ideas in my brain. And usually when that happens, that's when I give my brain some time to rest and give myself some time to reset. So whenever that happens, I actually don't work on my business for a whole week. I literally take a whole week off for myself. I might just do little tasks like posting on my Instagram and my social media, but I won't be thinking about crocheting or designing. So yes, I do give my brain a rest because I'm only human. I don't think I can be thinking of new ideas all the time. Yeah, I do have that designer's block, and I think that's very normal. And, you know, if you experience those periods of designer's block and you don't have any new ideas for new designs, then, you know, it's completely fine. It just means you just need to, you know, spend some time for yourself, you know, do things, you know, spend time with other hobbies or with other people, with your family, and just not think about your work or creating or designing. And then once you take that break, you'll come back and you'll actually have more ideas, which is essentially what happened with me before I went to Japan. Before I went to Japan, I had totally like no ideas. Like I just had no new design ideas for my business. And then I went to Japan for 2 weeks and I came back with so much. You know, I was literally just drawing all of these new designs and I was itching to create all of them, but, you know, I can only do so much with my time. So yeah, always, you know, if you ever experience, you know, a little brain fog, definitely take a rest, because I definitely do. I don't crochet 24/7, even though it seems like I do. So the next question is, top 5 items you'd want to crochet in the future. This is a really good question. Okay, so the first one is Snorlax, and I think I said this a year ago, and I still haven't made a Snorlax. I recently saw Erina make a really cute, Captain, no nom nom, no nom nom, no. I'm so sorry, guys. Captain just pressed the nom nom button, and I just fed him his nom nom, and now he's coming over because he's trying to be cute. You can see his fluffy hair. But anyways, so number 1, Snorlax. Number 2, I saw Erina make a really cute granny square tote bag. So I definitely want to try out, you know, making some granny squares. I've never done it before, and I'm really curious. I definitely want to make a jumper for myself. You know, I see a lot of people making, you know, crocheted clothing and stuff, and I want to give that a go, but I know it's very different to making amigurumi in terms of, you know, tension and things. So I don't know if I'm going to be good at it. Number 4, I want to crochet a Captain, considering Captain just distracted me just now, but I definitely want to make a, you know, a toy version of Captain. I haven't figured out when I will do that or how I'm going to do that, because he has a very woolly coat. So I'll have to really think about it if I'm going to make a toy version of him. And then number 5, what would I make for number 5? Ooh, my husband showed me an image of a human-sized Totoro. Maybe that's something I would want to do, but I feel like I'm going to need a lot of yarn for that, so I'll have to think about it. But those are the 5 things that I want to make. So next question is, top 5 items you don't enjoy crocheting. I can't really think of anything that I don't enjoy crocheting. In terms of the process of crocheting, like amigurumi, I don't really enjoy the sewing process. That's not really crocheting, but I don't enjoy sewing pieces together. Reason being is I always hurt myself when it comes to the sewing process. I don't know what's wrong with me, but literally the other day, I don't think you can see it anymore. It's kind of healed already, but I was sewing and then I pushed the needle through this part of my hand and it was so painful. It went through my skin. That was how hard I was pushing it. But luckily it's mostly just skin here, so it wasn't too bad and I didn't bleed too much because it was mostly skin, but it was painful. So I don't really have 5 items that I don't enjoy crocheting, but I don't enjoy sewing pieces together because I always hurt myself and it hurts my fingers as well, my poor little fingers. But yeah, I'll have to think about that one a little bit. Next question, how do you know how many items in your inventory is good enough to open a shop? Okay, so this is actually, a friend asked me this the other day, and I actually said, if you're planning to open, for instance, an Etsy store, I would say the more items you have in your Etsy store, for example, or even any store really, the more items you have, the better the chances of people finding your store. So I would say if you're just starting to open your store, I would say have at least 10 items on there, because you want to show that you have stock and you want to have, you know, it's in a way of, the way you should think about this. If you only had 1 item in your store, that means you are competing with millions of products. So you're 1 out of 1 million products online. Whereas if you had 10 products, you will have 10 products competing with a million other products. So your chances increase in terms of people finding you. So I would say aim for a starting stock of 10. And what I said to my friend was, because when he showed me his store, he only had 1 item. But then within that item, there were 10 different items. And so what I told him was to pull those 10 items out and make them individual items so that he has a higher chance of getting found on Etsy or online. So that's what I would say. Try and start with 10, but ideally you would want to have a lot. When I first started, I made the mistake of only putting one, and I think that's why it took me so long to get my first sale, because I only had one item and it took me 6 months to add more items to my store. And I think in terms of that, I wasn't very prepared. I didn't plan as well as I thought I did. So yeah, I definitely say starting at 10, but put as many as you can if you're starting a new store. So the next question is, when you opened your shop, how many followers did you have on IG? Does that really matter? Oh, okay. So when I opened my shop, I didn't open my Etsy store straight away when I started on IG. I think I only had around 500 followers on Instagram when I first started my Etsy store. I think in terms of back then, I think the number of followers didn't really matter so much for me, only because I only opened it because people were starting to request for my toys, and they were requesting for patterns as well, and I didn't have any platform at the time to sell my patterns and toys, and I didn't want to do it over Instagram or Facebook. And so when I created my store, my Etsy store, which was my very first store, my follower count was very low, and I only created it because people were requesting toys and patterns. So I would say, in terms of does it really matter, I would say at the beginning, no, it did not really matter in terms of my number of followers. But people did find me on Instagram, and that was how that's when I would redirect them to my Etsy store at the time and get them to purchase from there. And if they didn't want to, then at the time when I first had my shop, I had absolutely nothing. I had no PayPal account. I had no proper email address. I had nothing. Like I was fairly unprepared when it came to starting my shop. And it kind of just happened. And I think that's what kind of happens usually. It just kind of happens. And you feel really underprepared. So I would say, in answering this question, I would say I only had 500 followers roughly, and no, the number of followers for my IG did not matter. So yeah, so if you're someone who's actually starting or planning or thinking about starting a shop, I would say don't hesitate. Even if you feel like your Instagram numbers or TikTok numbers are not that high, I definitely still encourage people to, open at least a shop so that people could still find you somehow, somewhere. And, if you do list your items in, any platform, at least it will be easy to direct them to that website if they find you on Instagram, for example. So yeah, I hope I answered that question well. Throat is getting a little dry already. Oh, okay. So the next question is, what platform is worth selling patterns? Etsy or personal blog? I need a piece of advice. Okay, so I would say, so I actually created a video about Etsy versus your own website. In my case, Wix. So Etsy versus Wix. Wix is another platform in terms of, for online e-commerce store. But in terms of, what happened with me was, when I first started, I sold on Etsy first. Because the reason why I went with Etsy first was because I didn't have to do a lot of work. All I had to do was list my products, pay for the listing fee, and let it sit on Etsy and just wait for a sale. That was literally how I just went about it. And then I guess as I gradually started to add more items into my store, I started to get more followers, and then, or not followers, sales. And when my sales reached a point where I think I was around like, I made quite a few sales already at that time, I think. It was like I made 500 or 600 sales on Etsy, and then that was when I decided that I needed my own personal website, only because, and you will know this as well if you watched my previous video about Etsy versus Wix, that Etsy has ridiculous fees. So when I realized I was getting a lot of sales on Etsy, that was when I opened up my own personal website, just to reduce the fees that Etsy was taking from me. So yeah, and I said this in my other video, I don't regret opening my Etsy first to sell my patterns and my physical toys. It was more of a growth thing. So when I realized my business was, you know, growing really well, and I knew that I could have, you know, I could redirect my sales to my website, that was when I decided to open up my own personal website / blog. So completely, honestly, it's completely up to you, but in terms of advice, watch that video that I have linked up here and in my description about Etsy versus Wix to give you an idea in terms of the difference between the two. Once you've watched that, then I would say think about, you know, what you want to do in terms of how you want to run your small business. Is it purely just physical toys or just patterns? And then I would say when it comes to running your business, it's a lot to do with marketing. So I would say work on your Instagram or TikTok first, get the followers first, and then designing toys at the same time though. Try and design as much as you can. If you were, you know, writing patterns, then try and write those patterns, try and write as many patterns as you can, and make sure that you get those tested by other people, because they can also market your patterns for you after they've completed the toy or completed the testing. And then once that is done and you have gained a lot of interest through your social media and you've got a lot more followers, then you can probably gauge whether you want to open an Etsy or your own personal blog. For myself, when I opened my Etsy store, I had, you know, a few hundred followers, like I said before. I only had one design, one digital design, and I only had one physical toy that I was selling. So that is not a lot of items to be selling on a personal website, which is why I opted for Etsy, because that allowed me to, you know, gradually add more items into my store, but also at the same time learning the different ropes to running a small business, which I mentioned in my comparison video. And yeah, starting Etsy made me think what I had to do for my own business, you know, what I had to do in terms of, you know, my finances, in terms of how I want to package my items, how I want to, you know, the photography side of things as well. So Etsy was a great platform for me to learn about running a business. And then once I felt confident enough, that was when I migrated to opening my own personal website. I still have my Esty store open because I still get the most sales there. But hopefully as time goes by, I will hopefully get more sales in my personal website. But for this person who asked me this question, I would say, firstly, focus on your marketing. Then marketing and designing, once you have a lot of designs, at least 10, like I mentioned before, if you have at least 10 digital products, but you're still unsure about opening a website, because even with a website, there is an upfront subscription fee, and that can be between, you know, $300 to $400, even $500, depending on the plan that you choose. And that upfront cost is quite a bit compared to the upfront cost that you have to pay with Etsy. So I would say start with Etsy, put your 10, 20, 30 patterns, if you have that many patterns, onto your store or items, and see how it goes in the first few months or 6 months. And keeping in mind, you're not going to get a sale straight away. So you need to have that kind of expectation. You don't want to be disappointed and you don't want to be giving up too soon. So see how it goes for the first 6 months. If the sales are doing really well on your Etsy, then I would say consider opening your own personal blog or website. And hopefully through your marketing, so through marketing on your Instagram, social medias, like TikTok as well, then you can start to draw people to your personal blog rather than your Etsy. I hope that makes sense. But yeah, definitely watch that video that I talked about in terms of the Etsy versus Wix that I created a few weeks ago. I think that will give you an idea of, you know, which one you would want to go with. But yeah, that's my advice to you. So the next question is, any tips for neat yuyu stitches to make them look squarish? I think my only tip is so for myself, I crochet with a very tight tension, like very tight. So I would say if you don't crochet with a tight tension, I would suggest trying to, because that will change the look of your stitches. Don't know if that answered that question though, but just saying, with amigurumi at least, you need a very tight tension to, you know, create the right shape, I guess, because I do see sometimes when people crochet with amigurumi, in terms of amigurumi, the tension is too loose, and then the shape of the toy looks very different to the image or to the pattern that they're working with. But once you tighten your stitches, then the shaping of the toy looks a lot neater and looks better, and you don't get as many holes. And in this case, your stitches will look more squarish rather than, you know, not squarish. Okay, so the next question is, how do you calculate and price your amigurumi patterns? Ooh, so this is a really good question. So I would suggest always do your market research, just so that you can see how much your competitors are pricing their patterns, and because you don't want to be overpricing, because you don't want to lose your sales to other people as well. But you also don't want to be underpricing your patterns, because you don't want to, you know, devalue the value of your pattern as well. So because at the end of the day, you do spend a lot of time to design and write the pattern. But yeah, for myself, at the very beginning, I did a lot of market research. I went on Etsy, saw, you know, basically looked at how detailed a pattern was and then how much people priced it. Did my research on Google as well, and just any other, you know, platforms that sell patterns, just so that I got an idea of, you know, what the pricing range is from other designers. And then once I did that research and I got my pricing range, that is probably that is what I would follow. And I've been following my prices since the very beginning after I did my market research. So for example, with my small, you know, dim sum toys, like my xiaolongbao toys, the pattern for that is my cheapest. It's around $6 to $6.50 Australian dollars, and if I was to convert that to USD, it's like roughly $4 USD, so that's really cheap. But that is a very basic level pattern. And then if I was to, in terms of my more detailed design, so for example, this penguin here, which I'm yet to release the pattern for, I'm going to price this toy at $8.50 Australian dollars, because it is actually quite detailed. It has a lot of parts that you have to make. So, and I spent a little bit more time designing and writing the pattern for this. So the price for this pattern is roughly $8.50. And then if I was to create or sell an even more detailed pattern, then the price of that will be roughly around $9 to $9.50 for the single pattern. So basically, if I was to tell you the ranges, so for a very small, not very detailed design, then it'll be roughly $6 to $6.50. For something that is that has more detail, it will be roughly $8 to $8.50. And for something that is even more detailed, it will be between $9 to $9.50. And so basically my patterns are all under $10, Australian dollars. And that is what I've been following for a while. Yes, I do, depending on, you know, how inflation is and how the economy is, I do increase my pattern prices occasionally, but I've been running my business for 2.5 years and I have not increased my pattern prices in that 2 years. And I'm starting to think if I should, but I don't think I will be. So yeah, that's the price that I always price my patterns with, and well, in terms of the range, that's the range. And this is all purely from, you know, market research. And then in terms of my pattern bundles, which if you follow me, you know that I do sell pattern bundles. So my pattern bundles basically contain multiple patterns, like 5-6 patterns in one file. And those patterns, as a bundle, it's definitely more expensive. It's always roughly around, you know, between $30 to $60, depending how many patterns are in that bundle. But then if you calculate the individual pattern price in the bundles, it's actually 20% cheaper than buying one single pattern. So that's the rule that I use. There's always a 20% discount when you buy a bundle compared to buying an individual pattern. So yeah, so those are the rules that I follow. But at the very beginning, do your market research so that you can compare, what other people are selling their patterns for. And then based on that, you can figure out how much you want to sell your patterns for. But yeah, it's all about research, in all honesty. Okay, so the next question, onto the second page. How do you market your products on social media at first till now? Do you create any schedule? How do I market my products on social media? It was, at the beginning, I was posting a lot, and I think I still post quite a bit and quite frequent. And I think the rule to social media is that you need to be consistent. And when I say consistent, I mean, you know, consistent in terms of when you post and how many times you post. So for example, on Instagram, I usually post 5 times in the week. So I usually only post on the weekdays, and the weekends I don't touch my Instagram. I don't do anything on it. So that's what I do. At the beginning, when I first started, I was posting every single day, 7 days a week. I was also doing a lot of stories at the beginning, so sharing what I was doing on a daily basis in terms of designing and toys and crocheting. But now, I think because I have more followers, I don't post as frequent, and in terms of my stories, I don't post as much on my stories, and I don't post 7 days a week. I post probably 4 to 5 days a week instead, depending on how I feel, I think. And I think the reason for that is because I have more followers. I don't feel like I need to be growing as much anymore. Like, I still need to grow more, but I don't put that pressure on myself. At the beginning, I put a lot of pressure on myself to post more so that I could gain more attention for my designs and gain interest. But now that I've got a following and I've got people interested in my designs, I don't post as much as I did before. In terms of, because when you ask about how you market your products on social media, that is also to do with photography as well. So at the beginning, I was saying my photography wasn't as great compared to my photography now. So I definitely did spend the 2.5 years practicing or working with, you know, lighting and setups and how I want to, you know, take photos of my toys. And because at the end of the day, in terms of marketing, it really comes down to how your product is viewed by the viewer, and that is through your photographs of your products. So at the beginning, my photos were really rough. I didn't really care so much about where I was taking the photo, how I was editing the photo, but now I definitely put a lot more thought into where I'm taking the photo, how the setup is, the editing, what camera I'm using. So So yeah, I definitely put a lot more effort into the photographs for the marketing side of things. In terms of frequency, I'm less frequent with my posting or marketing on my socials compared to the very beginning. I do, however, create a schedule of the things that I want to be posting for the month. I used to do it by the week because I was posting so much. That's why I had to do it by week. But then now I do it by month. And so, like I said before, when I plan for the month in terms of what I need to do, I'm also planning for the month in terms of what I need to post and market on my social media platforms. And then I just feel more prepared when it comes to that. It means I will have a folder of content on my computer or on my phone, so that when the time comes, I'm ready to just go post. So that I don't need to be worried and freaking out when I'm like, oh no, I haven't posted for 3 days, I have nothing to post. I don't want to be in that situation because I have other things to worry about, in all honesty. So I would say, if you are someone who probably needs to be organized with your social media, definitely create a schedule for yourself. I know that online you can find some, ideas in terms of what to post on a daily basis on your social media. So there are people who do create a schedule for that. So you can probably find that if you just do a quick Google. I know other crocheters actually have their own schedule that they also sell. It's like a digital schedule. I don't have something like that because, like I said before, I plan, the month ahead. So that I know what to post on my social media and what to market on my social media. So yeah, I would say just be really organized when it comes to marketing, because marketing is what draws people to your social media, but also what draws people to your store as well. So definitely create a schedule if that's what you're asking. And I know coming with new ideas in terms of content is really hard, but it's okay to have, just a photograph of your toy, or a video of you packaging an item, or a video or a reel of you creating or crocheting an item. There's a lot of different content that you can create, and it's okay to reuse some of that content. And when I say reuse, I don't mean using the same image. What I mean is like you can reuse the idea of creating a reel to packing an order, for instance. It's just making sure that that item is not the same item as a previous video you did, because people want to see new content all the time. So yeah, that is my one little bit of advice, and I hope I answered that question. So may I please be one of your testers? Yes, all you have to do, if you want to be one of my testers, you just need to send me a direct message on Instagram. And usually what I will ask you is if you have experience with testing. But if you don't have any experience, it's completely fine, because I usually write down a list of things for my testers to look out for. But yeah, I usually do choose testers that do have experience, but I also do give new testers the opportunity to test for me, even if they don't have any experience. I am planning to create like a Google form for people who want to test for me, just so that I could be a little bit more organized with my testers. Because right now I have 20 testers that I use frequently, and I have all their details on a Excel spreadsheet, which is my way of organizing my testers. But yeah, if you're interested to be one of my testers, just send me a DM on my Instagram and we can talk from there. How many hours do you work on your business, and how do you manage your time? Well, okay, I think I said this I've kind of answered this question before. In a week, so I work 5 days a week, sometimes 4 days a week, sometimes 3 days a week. And that's the perk of being my a boss, you know, my own boss. You know, having my own small business, I have that flexibility. I can decide on how long I can work and how I spend my time. But in terms of how many hours I work on my business, it really varies. It depends if I'm launching a new design or new, if it depends if I'm launching any new designs. So if I'm launching a new design, so for instance, I'm working on my Halloween series. I think in terms of the weeks that I was designing, I was working for the full 5 days. Yes, I was working full 5 days, and I would start working at 10 and I would finish working at 5. So that is 10 to 5, that's 7 hours for 5 days. But then some days I would continue designing at night for an extra 2-3 hours. So I would say in a week or in a day, I can work between 7 to 10 hours, which I feel like is fairly standard. But the thing is, for me, it doesn't feel like I'm working. Because when I'm designing or crocheting, I'm watching TV while I am doing my little tasks of, you know, designing and everything. So yeah, that is a busy week. Because usually when I'm designing, that is a busy week for me, because I still need to be packaging orders and doing other little bits and pieces. So as a standard, it's 7 to 10 hours per day. And if I'm working, you know, 5 days a week, then, you know, that's 35 to 50 hours, which I feel like it's still less than what I was doing before in my previous job. But then there are weeks where I just don't feel like doing anything and I just work 3 days or 4 days. When that happens, I'm usually catching up with a friend on a weekday or something. I visit them at their house and I just don't work for the whole day. Like yesterday, I was not really in the mood to be working on my business because I just did my taxes and I was a little bit sad about it. And I literally only did 2 hours of work. So it's really hard to put a number in terms of how many hours I work on my business. But if I was to be realistic, on a busy week, it's 35 to 50 hours. On a week where I am taking it easy and really chill, I only work 3 to 4 days, and usually the hours for that is probably roughly 20 to 30 hours in that week. So yeah, those are the hours I would say. In terms of how I manage my time, like I said before, I always write a list of tasks for the month and for the week, and then based on that, that's how I manage my time, because I know how long it takes me to do something, and that's how I manage my time. And I try not to overwork myself. I've been running my business for 2.5 years, and thinking about it, I haven't been burnt out just yet. I think. Actually, no, once. I was burnt out once. And this was before my Japan trip. And the reason why I knew I was burnt out was because I had no idea what I was doing. I had all my tasks written out, but when I looked at those tasks, I just had no idea what to do. My brain wasn't functioning. I didn't know what I was doing. And I was tired all the time and I was not inspired. I had no new design ideas. And that was when I was realizing that I was burnt out and I was just doing too much and I wasn't allowing my mind and my body to rest. And that was after 2 years. So in that 2 years, I was really cranking it. And I think after that burnout, now I'm a little bit more chill about my hours. I'm definitely not working 24/7, that's for sure. So yeah, I think I'm definitely a little bit more chill about my hours these days. But yeah, in terms of managing my time, I'm always writing and checking my task list and understanding what tasks I can do in the day, and I'm realistic about my tasks as well. So if I have a list of 10 items, I will pick 3 items from that list and I will target those items for the day. If I can finish it within the 7 hours, then great. If not, then I just roll it over to the next day, and and I keep going. And the thing is, being your own boss is that you set your own deadlines as well. Unless you have a collaboration, for instance, then that's a different story. But I do set my own deadlines and when I want things released or when I want things to be completed. So yeah, I think you just need to understand yourself, how you work, how fast you work, and how much time you need for certain tasks, and based on that, then you can realize how much you can do in the day, because keep in mind, you don't want to be burning out, and that's something I don't want to happen for myself. I've experienced it once so far with running this business, and I don't want to experience it again. So take your time. That's what I'm trying to say. Enjoy the process. Don't burn out. Next question, what programs do you use to design or edit your patterns? They're very pretty. Thank you. So I design all my digital patterns on Adobe InDesign. That is my preference. It's not a free program, unfortunately, but it's just something that I've used since my architecture days. I've been using InDesign for over 10 years. So oh, there's a bug here. So I know how the program works, and honestly, it's very easy to learn. I think, however, if you don't want to pay for InDesign, there are other platforms that you can use. God, this bug is really annoying me. Gonna try to kill it. Nah. Ah. Did I kill it? No. Okay. Oh no. Okay. Sorry guys, there was a bug flying around and that was so annoying. Where was I? Oh yes, so I use InDesign, but if you don't want to pay for InDesign, there are other platforms that you can use to create your patterns. But yeah, and I think did I create a video about, yes, I do have a video. I actually have a video about how I write my patterns, and I'll put a link up here and in my description as well. I don't show people how I do it, only because whenever I don't have a video that shows how I use InDesign. But if I was to just say really quickly, I do have a template that I use on InDesign that I use for all of my patterns, so that it's consistent and everything looks fairly similar. And yeah, I just created that template on InDesign and I just use it. So it's a fairly easy program for me. I feel like it's a very easy program to use, but for someone who's never used any Adobe Suite programs, it may be a little bit complex. But there are so many videos on YouTube to teach you how to use InDesign. So if you are looking for a program that does really good, graphics and things, then I definitely suggest using Adobe InDesign, only because it links with, you can link files from Photoshop and Adobe Illustrator, which are the 2 programs that I use as well. So yeah, give it a go. I would say give InDesign a go. So the next question, how do you maintain your love or enjoyment for crochet after making it your job? So many people lose that spark when they monetize their hobbies, but you still seem so passionate and happy about your art. Oh, thank you. I'm just so glad that people can see how passionate I am with amigurumi and crochet. But in terms of how do I maintain that love and enjoyment, really, it's because I feel like I'm still learning. Crochet is such a versatile fiber art. Like, you can make so many things with crochet. There are so many different stitches as well. I honestly have not learnt all the stitches. I only know the basic stitches, honestly, and you can see from my designs, I've only learned the basic stitches, but it's just creating shapes that I've been learning and experimenting. And I think that's why I am still really passionate about it because I'm still learning. Two, I feel like there is an endless amount of things that I can make with crochet, and I haven't touched a lot of those things. Like, I've only done amigurumi. I haven't made clothes. I haven't made a bag. I haven't made a hat. I haven't made socks. I haven't made a lot of things with crochet, and I really want to try and make those things. And like, what's most important to me, and I said this already, is the fact that I'm still learning. If I'm not learning anymore, that's when I start to get bored. And I think that was what happened with my previous job. I didn't feel like I was learning anymore, and that was when I lost my passion with working in the industry, in the architecture industry. And yeah, I just feel like every day was the same, and I think that was what led to me losing my passion for that industry. Whereas with crochet, I am still very much passionate about it because I'm still learning as I'm going. And I feel like I still have a lot to learn. In all honesty, I am still learning new stitches. I'm still learning new ways of creating new shapes. I'm still learning new ways to, design. I'm still learning. So I think I'm gonna be enjoying this hobby of mine, which is now my job, for a very long time, I think. So the next question is, what size hook do you use on your projects? So I love using cotton DK yarn, which is 8-ply yarn. So with like hobby yarn, for example, it's like a 8.6 yarn. I always use a 2.5mm hook. For my baby snuggly yarns, which is this one, I use a 6mm hook. So those are the two hooks I usually use. Occasionally when I am designing, the cotton ones, and I need to make a hair wig, for example, then I would increase my hook to a 2.75 or 3mm hook. But yeah, that's only sometimes when I'm creating, a hair wig, for example, or making clothes or something. Then I would increase the hook size. But yeah, those are the 2-3 size hooks that I use for my creations. Next question is, do you struggle with motivation to type patterns? Yes. 100% yes. I don't have my book here. Oh, yes, I do. So this is my book that I use to write my patterns, and you can see the tabs here. These are tabs of patterns I haven't written yet or haven't digitalized yet. I'm being very lazy about it. There's only 5 tabs here, but there's actually like 8 patterns here that I haven't written. Yes, I do need to try and find motivation to do it, because when it comes to digitalizing a pattern, I am sitting in front of a computer for 6 to 7 to 8 hours, and I am someone who does not like sitting in front of a computer all day. I just can't do it. I am someone who needs to bounce around all the time. So usually I am working on the computer for 1 to 2 hours, and then I'll be like, oh, this is enough, I'm done with this. And then I move on to the couch, and then I'll sit here for an hour or two, and then I'll be like, oh, back is getting stiff now. And then I'll stand up and I'll start creating some reels, for example. And then when it comes to pattern writing, I'm just like, oh, I have to sit in front of a computer for 8 hours to finish writing, 2 patterns. It's hard. It's hard. Usually when it comes to pattern writing, I put on some really, what do I put on? I put K-pop on, because one, I don't understand it, and I just need some really energized music to get me going. And K-pop does that. So I put K-pop on, and then that will get me in the mood, and then I will go for it. I would start writing all my patterns. But yes, it's always the last thing I do on my list, because I don't look forward to it. So yes, I do struggle with motivation to write up my patterns. Okay, so next question is, how do you start a crochet business? I'm 14, and fun fact, my name is Emmy. Hi, Emmy. My name's not Emmy, my name's Chloe, but I named my business Emmy because I actually really like the name. So you have a really beautiful name, really beautiful. So how do I start my crochet business? This is a really good question, and I actually have a YouTube video for it. It was actually my very first YouTube video where I talked about how to start your own small crochet business, and I basically go through 5 key questions, and it's basically like a guide for people. So the 5 questions I put up, if I remember this correctly, it's who, where, when, how, and what. I think those were my 5 questions. I don't really remember because I created this like 2.5 years ago. But yeah, basically answers those 5 questions, and the video basically breaks down what you need to think about prior to creating or prior to starting your business. So I'll put the link up here, and I'll put it in the description as well for you to find. But if I was to quickly answer your question, is to be prepared, plan ahead. So that video basically is a plan, and I break it down into 5 categories, and within that there's other subcategories of things for you to think about. So yeah, plan ahead, be prepared, don't hesitate. I would say, you know, once you hesitate, you'll never get anything done. So definitely be prepared, don't hesitate, do your research. And also, you're 14. You were so young. When I was 14, I was still watching anime. I didn't even think about creating my own business. So you were going to, you know, do so many great things. I know it already, considering you're 14 and you're already thinking about creating your own crochet business. But yeah, those are just some really quick advice. But to break down how to start your crochet business, definitely watch that video that I just put in the corner here, or if you can't click on that link, then just go to my description section and there is a video for that. So I really hope the best of luck for you, Emmy. You are so young and you have so many great things ahead for you, and you know, I'm excited for you because you are so young and you have just so many possibilities. You know, you can do so much. You're so young. Okay, so the next question is, what is your goal for the future? Oh, my goal. I want to keep designing. I want to release a book. That's my goal, actually. My goal is to publish my own book. That has been a dream of mine since the beginning. That is what I wanted to do when I first started my business. And I would say I'm working towards that. Honestly, I don't really know where to start when it comes to publishing my own book, but I'm sure I'm going to figure it out and find out the best way to do it. But yeah, that is my goal for the future, is to publish my own book. Next question. Where do you get your packaging materials? It looks so good. Thank you. So with my packaging goods, where? Okay, so let's just start with how I found my packaging materials. It's literally just Googling and finding manufacturers who can give me a really good price on, you know, my boxes or my tissue paper or anything package related. I do purchase a lot of my packaging materials through eBay because a lot of the suppliers there, they provide free shipping only through eBay for some reason. And the prices are a little bit cheaper on eBay compared to their own website, which is really strange. So I do purchase a lot of my boxes on eBay. In terms of my other packaging items, like my, you know, thank you cards, business cards, tissue paper, I get all of those through Vistaprint. And I'm also an ambassador for Vistaprint, so acquiring a lot of the products is quite easy for me. In terms of designing the packaging goods for, you know, like I said, the business cards, thank you cards, and tissue papers and stickers and things, I design all those myself. But in terms of when it comes to packaging materials, like I said before, you should always do your market research and see how much different suppliers are pricing their materials, because you want to get the best price. You don't want to be spending too much on your packaging materials, but also at the end of the day, you need to make sure to allocate some cost for that, because it can get quite pricey, especially if you don't do your research and you don't find the best price for yourself. But yeah, I would say eBay for a lot of my packaging goodies, and for you know, all the other packaging things like the tissue papers and business cards and stuff, then that is all through Vistaprint. Next question is, it can be up to a year until you can reveal designs and stuff. Yes. That seems like a long time. Yes. Can you tell us about the process that goes on behind the scenes with these collabs? Oh, that is a very good question, because I don't think I've ever talked about it, actually. So what happens is, with a collab that can last for a year, and I'll probably talk about the collab that's already been done, which was a year ago when I had a collaboration with Homespun magazine. That design, I designed it wasn't 1 year like the one I'm doing right now. I can't really talk about that one, but for the Homespun one, that was like a 6-month wait. So basically what happened was, they reached out to me. I basically just got an email asking if I was interested to, you know, design something to be featured in the magazine. And then when I got that email, yes, obviously I would respond, and then they'll come back to me with a contract. I signed that contract, which breaks down, you know, what the pricing is and the time frames of things. And then I basically just talked to this rep throughout the whole process. So once I sign the contract, I send them a design. So I usually send them a design first before they send me the contract, because they want to be happy with the design first before they go ahead with it. So I send them a design first. They send me a contract once they're happy with it. And then I sign the contract, and then I get a deadline, and then I design the toy. And then I need to write the pattern. Usually with these collabs, they have their own template that we must follow, which is really hard for me because I have my way of writing. So usually with these collabs, I spend a little bit more time writing patterns because I need to write it in their format. So once I finish writing the pattern, I send it to my testers and I let them know that it's a confidential project and they can't share any bit of this project until I release the pattern, until the magazine is released. And then once the testers are done, I mail the toy to the publisher. So I mail the toy, I email them a hard copy and a soft copy of the pattern, and then they hold on to the toy for roughly 6 months. And then they basically do their own product photos and everything. They have their own editors and they, edit the pattern to their format and stuff. Once they've done that, they send me a draft of the spreads of my pattern. And then I go and check the pattern and make sure everything looks okay and that, everything is right. And then I will send it back to them, telling them of any changes that they may need to make. And then once that's done, then I just wait for the release date of that magazine. And so for the Homespun collab, that was a 6-month wait. Once they released the magazine, they sent the magazine and my toy back to me. And then on the contract, they say that I can't release a digital version of that pattern until 6 months after the release of the pattern in the magazine. So even now, I think I can release that particular pattern, but I still haven't yet because it was a Christmas design. So I think I'll do it in December of this year instead. But yeah, that is the process of these collabs. And the reason why it takes so long is because of the editing process that they need to take. the editing process that they have to do to release the magazine and the patterns, and they're also not just dealing with me, they were also dealing with 20 other designers as well. So yeah, it is a very long process, and I guess you have to be really patient with them as well, and just hope that people will enjoy your pattern as well when it's released. So yeah, the magazine process is fairly different to the current process I'm working with, which I will talk about once I can talk about it. But yeah, it can be up to 1 year before I can reveal a design, unfortunately. But yeah, so the next question is, do you ever get burnt out from crocheting amigurumi? And I touched on this, and yes, I do get burnt out, and I've only experienced it once. And as I said before, when I realized I was burnt out was when I was feeling extremely exhausted. My brain was foggy. I had a list of tasks that I had to do, but I didn't know how to start. I was pacing around. I just didn't know what to do. I just was not motivated at all, and I just knew I was not in the right mindset of running my business at that time. And that was when my husband booked a trip to Japan, and I really needed that trip. That really made a world of difference for me, because I came back more inspired, more excited, eager to design, had so many ideas. So if you start to feel like you're burnt out, take a break. Take a 1 to 2 week break and come back with a fresh head, fresh eyes, fresh hands, and you'll thank yourself for it. So next one, have you done other crochet items like blankets or wearables? No, but those are things I want to try. How did you and your husband meet? Does he crochet, or have you attempted to teach him? Oh, okay. No one's asked me this ever. How did I meet my husband? It was actually through a mutual friend. We met at my friend's graduation party. Basically, his friend is my friend's husband now. At the time, they were boyfriend and girlfriend, and that's how we met. We were actually friends first for a whole year before we actually started talking more online and started dating. So yeah, we didn't go through the whole online dating scene. We did it old school, I guess. But yeah, it was through mutual friends. And no, he does not crochet, and he would never go anywhere near my hooks and yarn. He's the least creative person that I know, in all honesty, the least creative. So I don't think he'll ever learn, and I don't know if I will be patient enough to teach him. But yeah, so that's my husband for you. Do you have any alternatives for people like me who want to design patterns, but we're not given the ability to draw? How can we make sketches using other tools besides drawing it out? That's a really good question. The thing is, whenever people say they can't draw, I always say, yes, you can. Everyone has their own style. And, the drawing itself doesn't have to be perfect. I'm just that one person who likes to draw on my, iPad and make it look good so that I can visualize it better. But in all honesty, prior to drawing on my iPad, I did not draw any of my designs. It was all in my head. I visualized it in my head. I played around with shapes as I was designing, and that's how I would come up with my designs. I did not draw them on my iPad, and rarely did I sketch them out as well. It was only in the last year when I started to really want to learn how to draw on the iPad a little bit more, and I just used that opportunity to practice drawing. But I would say everyone can draw. It's just everyone has their own style. Your sketches don't have to be perfect as long as you understand it. If you have other if you're not comfortable with drawing, but you're more comfortable with, you know, creating collages, for example, or collating ideas or something, you can do research on Google or on Pinterest or something. Just print those, you know, ideas out and just, you know, pick things out of those and try and create those shapes and try and create your design. That's one way to do it. It's almost like a collage, maybe. But yeah, I for myself, drawing helps me design, but everyone is very different in terms of when they design. Some people don't draw at all. That was me at the beginning. But yeah, like, I honestly think if you just do what works for you, and again, like I said, your sketches don't have to be perfect. They could be a little squiggle, but if it makes sense to you, then it works. So yeah, don't put too much pressure on yourself if you feel like you have to be sketching to design, because that's definitely not the case. Hope that helps. I hope that gives you a bit of confidence. Yep. So next question is, I'm curious about your design process. I'm curious about where you get your inspiration, how you go about creating, from where the idea for the toy comes from in the first place, right up to making that idea a physical toy in your hand. Okay, so I've actually... Sorry, drinking a lot of water. I've actually got a video of me talking about my process of designing, and I do have a lot of YouTube videos showing my designing process, but in terms of where I get my inspiration from, so I am inspired by what I see around me, the favorite things that I see. So I'm inspired by my culture, as you may know. I'm inspired by the food that I love to eat. I'm inspired by the things that I see around me every day, like my plants, my dog, Captain, inspired by basically my own experiences, by my holidays, my trips. I think I already said this, the foods that I eat, because I do make a lot of food inspired amigurumis. So yeah, so I get inspired just by things around me, and also seasonal things. So like Halloween, Christmas, Easter, the Lunar New Year, I'm inspired by those holidays. So once I get inspired, I start to think about the ideas, and when I have an idea, I'll always draw it out, as I said before. But then once I've drawn it out, I also do some market research. So I also do a bit of research just to make sure that there isn't a design that is too similar to what I had drawn up, because I don't want to be, you know, replicating someone else's design. I want to have my design as unique as possible and to have my style. So yeah, so once I have that, then that is when once I have the idea and I've drawn the idea up and I've done my research, seeing if other people have done similar things, that's when I go straight into creating the different shapes. And you have seen in other videos of my designing process that I do a lot of trial and error with shapes and things, and a lot of the time I am, you know, taking pieces out and redoing, and it's a whole process of, you know, trial and error. But then once I create those different shapes, then I put it all together and I create my toy. So yeah, that's a really quick summary of my process when it comes to designing new toys. If you're really curious, you can also look at my previous videos of me designing, of my design with me processes. Those are pretty realistic videos of what I go through in terms of designing new toys. So the next question is, how did you get into making and designing amigurumi? What or who inspired you the most in your craft to bring your lovely creations to what they are today? So how did I get into making and designing amigurumi? It was actually my very good friend, my best friend, she actually, I was talking to her about it years ago. I was like, oh, I want to learn a new craft. You know, I've been knitting for a while, but I want to, you know, try something new. And then she said, why don't you crochet? And then she showed me some things that she's made, and she's gifted me quite a few things prior to that. And I asked her more about amigurumi and crochet. And then she said that I should really give it a go, especially because I know how to knit, then crocheting shouldn't be too hard. So I actually looked into crocheting and amigurumi, did some research, looked at some of the things that people can make with it, and I was really excited because I was like, wow, how do you make something just by using one hook and a ball of yarn? Like, that's amazing. And I told my husband about it, and that was when my husband took me to a bookstore, and then he bought me my very first crochet kit, and it was of a cactus. It was a book all of these cacti, and in the kit there was yarn, a hook, everything that you need to make an amigurumi cactus. And so he bought me that, and then he went on Amazon and bought me more hooks and more things that I need to create amigurumi. So he really saw my curiosity and, you know, jumped on the occasion and purchased items for me so that I can pursue this craft. So yeah, my best friend and my husband were the ones who inspired me, or I guess got me into making amigurumi toys. In terms of designing, I think it was more because I am a designer at heart. I was in the design industry and architecture. I was designing a lot already, and I love designing. That is just me. I love designing. I love creating. So it felt natural to me to be designing my own toys. And so with that, it came with me in terms of, you know, researching other fellow amigurumi designers and seeing how they were designing and what they were designing and the techniques that they used. So one of the many designers that inspired me was actually Erina, from a little aqua girl, and I'm sure you guys know her. Like, she's got 2 books out. I think she's probably working on a 3rd, I think, maybe. But yeah, like, her projects really inspired me, and I was like, I want to be like her. I want to be designing like her. I want to be designing toys like her. That makes me feel excited and happy and want to be creative. And then, so from there, I've just been, you know, that's where it all started. Like, it started with my best friend introducing crochet to me, to my husband buying all the crochet equipment that I required, to me finding an artist that I'm inspired by, like Erina, and there are other ones that I'm inspired by. And then that led me to doing what I'm doing today and happily calling it my full-time job. And yeah, I'm just so thankful to all those people who have inspired me and pushed me to pursue this path, because I don't think I would be here if all of those things didn't happen. So yeah, so a few people to thank, and also even today I'm still very inspired by my fellow amigurumi designers. I'm still learning every day from them as well. So yeah. So the next question, can you tell us where in your home you crochet? Right here. On my couch. So I actually have a video as well. It's one of my earlier videos where I show you how I run my business in my small 1-bedroom apartment. And you will see how my couch looks. But it is basically one side of the couch is of all my yarn. The middle seat is my seat, which is closest to my pile of yarn and materials. And then right here, where this cushion is, this is where my husband sits usually. So this is his seat. We're starting to realize our 3-seater couch is not big enough. So we have a beanbag as well. So I sometimes sit on the beanbag to crochet, and I sit on the couch to crochet because the TV is right here. So yeah, I crochet on the couch. And I know my husband doesn't like it because it's a mess. Because when we first moved in, I didn't have a crochet business just yet. But we had a nice full-length couch and it was so spacious. But now I've just taken over the whole living room. and I know he's not happy about that. But when we move to a bigger place, I'm sure he'll be much happier about it, I think. But yeah, on my couch, that's where I crochet. Okay, so last 2 questions. How do you keep your hands from cramping while crocheting? Do you take breaks during your crochet sessions? Oh, okay, so I answered this question previously. Yes, I kind of did answer this question, but like I said before, and I'll just answer it again really quickly. Hand exercises, so those stretches that I mentioned before, and then a lot of rest. Having a lot of rest, taking, you know, the 15 to 30 minute rest, and definitely, yeah, definitely taking those breaks during crochet sessions. And don't crochet every single day. I crochet every second day, just so that I can recover, you know, recover my hands, recover my back, and then hopefully your body is freshened up after 1 full day of, you know, not crocheting, and then you can, you know, do the whole process all over again. So yeah, stretches for your arms and hands, and taking breaks as often as you can during those crochet sessions. And then the final question is, do you have a long-term plan or vision, like a 10-year plus plan of where you want your business to be? Oh, okay. So there was a question like this before, and I said I want to publish a book. So but then you asked a 10-year plus plan. Okay, so I would say, so I think if I was to break it down, so within the first 5 years, or within the next 5 years, I would like to have published my book. I would have loved to reach 6 figures in my business. So that's my 5-year plan. In terms of a 10-year plus plan, I think it would be having my own little store. I would love to have my own physical store, a cute little store. I have an image of what it could be in my head. So I want a little cute store where I can display all my makes, all my kits, supplies, you know, be a stockist for certain yarn brands, for example. And also I think if I had my own store, I could have a lot of my supplies there rather than being in my home, because right now my home is my office. And also in terms of like how much I earn, again, I want to be earning around the 6-figure mark, but I want to be earning enough so that I can retire my husband. So I hope my dream is to have a successful business where my husband can retire and he can, you know, pursue his dreams, because he's sacrificed a lot for me to start this business. So that's my 5-year plan and 10-year plus plan, I would say. Those are my goals. And the thing is, right now my business has been running for 2.5 years, just over 2.5 years. And it's been going very well. It's definitely reached a lot of my goals already. And I think I've achieved a lot in the 2.5 years. And now I'm, you know, starting to realize what the potentials are for my business. And I can see it going all the way to you know, to having my own, you know, studio, having my own store, you know, selling my pieces in a physical store, and, you know, maybe having classes in my physical store, displaying all my, you know, selling, you know, yarn, or even, that would be really cool actually, creating my own yarn. I've never tried that before, but I don't think that's something that I'm really passionate about just yet. But yeah, those are my goals for the next 10 years. So yeah, I think there's a lot of work to do still, and I guess 10 years is a lot of time because a lot can happen in 10 years. Like, I'm 31 now. In 10 years I'll be 41, and I don't know what those 10 years will hold. So but those are the goals that I have. Whether I reach those goals or whether they become my future plans, it really depends, I guess. But my first goal or my first plan is to have my own book. So, or to publish my own book. So that is definitely number 1 on my list. And then number 2 on my list is to have my own store. Oh no, number 2 is to earn 6 figures. Number 3 is to own my own store. Number 4 is to retire my husband through my business. So yeah, those are my goals. And that is a pretty good, basically I just want my business to succeed. Yeah. To summarize, I just want it to be successful, and I just want to be happy, and I just want to be able to support my family. So yeah, I think that's a really nice way to end this Q&A session, I think. Those were all the questions. There were a lot of questions. There were 30 questions here. I hope that I answered them detailed enough, but if you have more questions regarding the ones that I've just answered, definitely leave them in the comments below and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. But otherwise, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give me a thumbs up. And if you haven't already, subscribe to my channel for some fun content I have planned for the future. But otherwise, I hope you all have a great day and I'll see you all very soon. Bye!